to answer even more abundantly beyond our imagination, Lord God. You're able to bring forth the good things, Lord God, beyond our imagination. So we trust you, we lean on you. Lord, we ask you that even during this time, that you will come through and speak to each one of us, Lord. That each person, each student will be inspired by your word, and we'll have a great time learning about the past perfect and good examples of sentences that we can utilize in our daily lives. Lord God, we ask you that you will give us wisdom and strength and just tenacity, that we don't give up, but we step forward. Even as we step upward sometimes, Lord God, we will move forward two steps at a time. Even if we step back one step, we'll not be discouraged, because you are with us. May you guide us intimately and help us have the ears to hear your voice and obey. We thank you, in Christ's name we pray. Amen. So we're going to inhale God's goodness and his love and his patience. His patient endurance. He's been so patient with humanity, even from the beginning. And we can learn a great deal. Like, if you are a parent, you can learn a great deal from our Father God, who has been so patient. And he wanted to come back. And Jesus wanted to come back soon. But he is delaying the process, wanting that more people, more of his children that he created with his hands, will be saved, will come back to him, because the judgment will be final. And so he is merciful and patient and loving, and his faithfulness is beyond our imagination. So let us inhale his goodness and exhale our sinful tendencies, and just exhale our dark thoughts, our fears, failures, any distractions, impurities, anything that is not of him. So let's inhale, and on count of 6, do the same on the count of 6. We're going to exhale. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. While you're continuing to breathe, I'm going to ask you questions to help you focus in your inner being. What have you brought to this place? Any feelings, experiences, but primarily your feelings. Are you glad? Are you sad? Are you worried? Worry-free? Are you hopeful? Hopeless? Peaceful? Restless? Rejuvenated? Or tired? What kinds of questions or concerns have you brought to this place? What do you need to lay down or let go in order to be fully present before God? Where were you looking for God this past week? And was there any surprising moment when you actually sensed His presence or His intervention? I'm going to read it 4 times, and you can just simply follow my guidance. You can read from chapter 8 of the book of Matthew. When Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, "Lord, if you're willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." I'm going to read from verse 5. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, asking for help. "Lord," he said, "my servant lies at home, paralyzed, suffering terribly." Jesus said to him, "Shall I come and heal him?" The centurion replied, "Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, 'Go,' and he goes, and that one, 'Come,' and he comes. I say to my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, "Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west, and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Then Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, let it be done just as you believed it would." And his servant was healed at that moment. Let the word of God just wash over you. The second time I read it, let us pay attention to any word or phrase or image or other things utilizing our spiritual 5 senses, anything that comes to us in a special way, anything that stands out. And we're going to let it become part of ours. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. "Lord," he said, "my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly." Jesus said to him, "Shall I come and heal him?" The centurion replied, "Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, 'Go,' and he goes, and that one, 'Come,' and he comes. I say to my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, "Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west, and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, let it be done just as you believed it would." And his servant was healed at that moment. The third time I read it for you, lift up that thing that stood out to you and ask the Lord to tell you why it stood out to you. If he wants you to do anything, or if he wants you to just hear that from him, or just sit in his presence and read from the Message Bible. Jesus came down the mountain with the cheers of the crowd still ringing in his ears. As Jesus entered the village of Capernaum, a Roman captain came up in a panic and said, "Master, my servant is sick. He can't walk. He is in terrible pain." Jesus said, "I'll come and heal him." "Oh no," said the captain, "I don't want to put you to all that trouble. Just give the order and my servant will be fine. I'm a man who takes orders and give orders. I tell one soldier, 'Go,' and he goes. To another, 'Come,' and he comes. To my slave, 'Do this,' and he does it." Taken aback, Jesus said, "I've yet to come across this kind of simple trust in Israel, the very people who are supposed to know all about God and how he works. This man is the vanguard of many outsiders who will soon be coming from all directions, streaming in from the east, pouring in from the west, sitting down at God's kingdom banquet alongside Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And those who grew up in the faith, but had no faith, will find themselves out in the cold, outsiders to grace and wondering what happened." And Jesus turned to the captain and said, "Go. What you believed could happen has happened." At that moment, his servant became well. the fourth time I read it for you, we're going to lift up prayers in response to God's message. And if you didn't experience anything special, anything that stands out, then it's okay. You can still rest in God's presence because He can speak to us anytime and any location outside this context. It's not limited by time and space. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home, paralyzed, suffering terribly. Jesus said to him, shall I come and heal him? The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west, and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the centurion, go, let it be done, just as you believed it would. And his servant was healed at that moment. So how was that experience for you? Which were your image, any kind of senses that stood out to you? To me, the word faith, definitely. And I was just reminded of this movie scene where the centurion, a Roman captain, right? He was on the horse accompanied by some other lower soldiers. It's just running toward Jesus. He gets off from his horse, kneels before Jesus and says, Lord. It's amazing because at that time, the Israelites were conquered by the Roman Empire, and they were subjects to this kingdom that took over, right? And so they're not treated as citizens, they're lesser than human beings. They were treated like slaves, and it was not a pretty sight. They were mistreated oftentimes. Jesus is one of them. And come to think of it, he did not have any aspects that made him look attractive at all. He did not look like a charismatic leader. He did not look like the Messiah, prophesied Messiah, and that's why there were so many discussions and controversies. People did not agree that he was the Messiah. So on the outer surface, he looked like no one. And even some of the faithful people said, what good thing can come out of Nazareth? And even from the town that was despised, was not reckoned highly at all. He was born and raised, he was born in Bethlehem, but he was raised, and there was nothing special about him on the outer surface. And so the the centurion, a centurion who has more than 100 soldiers under him. That's a pretty large, as a size of military, because in the ancient past, the earth was not as heavily populated as now. Just to be a military man in a conquering nation who militaristically conquered Jerusalem and the Israelites, he is a power, right? But one thing that stood out to me was that he actually cared about his servant. He is a caring person. He's a true leader who cares about his people, not to just make them work, because they are supposed to serve him. They're supposed to take care of responsibilities, but he cares about the person. And so he's willing to actually, he could have sent his own messenger. Another thing that really amazes me is he recognizes who Jesus is. He knows that although he doesn't look anything like a significant person, he is of authority. He recognizes that. His spiritual eyes and ears are open. He's able to recognize what normal people don't. And he comes directly. It doesn't send his servant or messenger. He comes himself and then kneels down. And because he's concerned about this servant. The servant must have been very faithful to the master too. But the moment he arrives, he says, Master. He understands the lordship of Christ. He understands that Jesus is someone who is in charge, someone who is certainly higher than him. He understands that he has the power and authority to heal his servant, and that's why he came. And then, as he bows and explains the situation, my servant is suffering and is paralyzed. Jesus says, do you want me to heal him? Do you want me to come and heal him? So Jesus is such a humble king who is worthy of all our praises and who is just glorious without us lifting him up. He says, shall I come and heal him? So first of all, he doesn't mind that this man is a Roman soldier. Obviously the enemies with the Israelites. But he welcomes him because he sees the heart of that person rather than what kind of background, right? And that's how our Father God is, and that's why he was able to include in God's family the heritage of the Messiah. A citizen of Jericho, especially a prostitute, Rahab. A Moabite woman, Ruth. He even forgives, restores David and Bathsheba. Sheba is known till the end, wife of Uriah. And so God looks at the person's heart, and imagine King Solomon, although he fell greatly toward the end, he was chosen. Although he was not the first, he was son of the illegal, immoral marriage. So God is amazing. He sees the heart, and he wants to see the best of us. He's a good God. He wants to catch the best moment, right? For our sake. Now, but this man knows that he is lofty, that he is powerful, that he is someone to be revered. And that's already amazing, right? But he says, but Jesus says, I want to come and heal him. He doesn't say, you know what, I'm going to just lift my finger up and I just, or I just pray that like a little prayer, then it's gonna be healed. And then he says, should I come and heal him? He ministers not only to people physically and for their conditions and situations, but rather he ministers to the hearts of people. You want him to come and heal them. And the centurion says, well, please don't. I don't deserve. Like he knows who he is, like before God. I don't deserve you to come under my roof. Please say, just say the word and it'll be done. I myself am a man of authority, and he understands perhaps because he is a man of status, he understands this concept better. And I just say to this one, go, and goes, and I say, come, and he comes. You can do the same thing, because I am unworthy to even have you physically under my roof. And Jesus is just amazed. How did this Roman soldier, non-Israelite, who is not considered as people of God, know me so well, better than my own children? And Jesus turned around. Among you who are called Israelites, who are called circumcised, who are the Abraham's descendants, God's chosen people, you're called all that. And you have been called that, for that. But then, although you are the Abraham's descendants and you call yourself people of God, if you don't know me in your heart, and if you don't have that relationship with me, then you're going to be thrown into the eternal lake of fire. In the end, when I come for the second time, and there's judgment, and you will not be considered as one of my child. I will say, I don't know you. Taken aback, Jesus said, I've yet to come across this kind of simple trust in Israel. The very people who are supposed to know all about God and how he works. This man is the vanguard of many outsiders who will soon be coming from all directions, guys. Streaming in from the east, pouring in from the west. Sitting down at God's kingdom banquet alongside Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then those who grew up in the faith but had no faith will find themselves out in the cold, outsiders of grace, and wondering what happened. So what he means is, don't be complacent that you grew up in faith, that your entire family are Christians, but rather, and you've been going to church for a long time, but rather, you've got to have the spiritual eyes to be able to recognize who I am, who I really am. Not just say, Master, Lord, but live a life that acknowledges my Lordship. Live a life that acknowledges that I am powerful, that I'm the sovereign Lord. That your life and death, your sickness and health are in my hands. That I'm the Lord of all parts of your life. And if you live like that, even if you didn't come from the Israelite background, I'm going to reckon you as part of my family. Versus, even if you have the perfect background, if you are not earnestly seeking me and really strive to live a life. When I say strive, it's not by our own, like, we have to make a decision, but by the help of the Holy Spirit. We have to rely on the Holy Spirit, because we on our own, no matter how good we are, our goodness is limited. Our love, our faithfulness are limited, and we want to go further than that limited capacity. In order to do that, we need to seriously rely on the Holy Spirit. And you might be thrown into the fire. You might be thrown outside the gate of heaven. You'll not be included, and you'll be very confused, because what happened? I went to church all my life, and I was surrounded by Christians. I studied the Bible. Did I connect with God? Did I really live a life acknowledging Jesus' Lordship? Not sure about that. But I was surrounded by Christians. I was I studied the Bible. I didn't do anything horribly bad, but still, it's about that relationship with God. It's about that journey that you actively take. You make up your mind and begin your journey, leaving behind your old self that used to somehow live in the world or live according to the world's ways. So like you yourself have been the Lord over your life, or the world has, or any idols. But Jesus wants to see our pure heart, our faithfulness, our we basically need to have spiritual eyes, and we need to pray for that as well, to be able to see the truth and follow, really obey. Then Jesus turned to the captain and said, "Go. What you believed could happen has happened." At that moment, his servant became well. I really like the Message version of this passage. It gives us a very clear picture of what's going on. So let me just, although we're done, let's just read it one more time. As Jesus entered the village of Capernaum, a Roman captain came up in a panic and said, "Master, my servant is sick. He can't walk. He's in terrible pain." Jesus said, "I'll come and heal him." "Oh no," said the captain, "I don't want to put you to all that trouble. Just give the order and my servant will be fine. I'm a man who takes orders and gives orders. I tell one soldier, 'Go,' and he goes. To another, 'Come,' and he comes. To my slave, 'Do this,' and he does it." Taken aback, Jesus said, "I've yet to come across this kind of simple trust in Israel, the very people who are supposed to know all about God and how he works. This man is the vanguard of many outsiders who will soon be coming from all directions, streaming in from the east, pouring in from the west, sitting down at God's kingdom banquet, alongside Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And those who grew up in the faith but had no faith will find themselves out in the cold. Outsiders. Lack of supplies remains a key issue for the Russian military." Okay, so here's a good article, right? So what is the key idea here? The key idea is in bold-faced sentence, right? Russia's retreat from Kharkiv, northeastern Ukraine, has exposed key weaknesses in the supply and staffing of the nation's armed forces, Russian veterans and military bloggers say. Yeah. So here the sentence is reversed because the subject and the verbs actually come at the last part of the sentence, right? So they could have said, right, Russian veterans and military bloggers So this is the subject, right? The veterans and the bloggers say, so this is the verb. But then, that is not a key idea, right? Like what they want to emphasize, they tend to put it in the front part of the sentence. So then what was the most important thing? Russia's retreat. From Kharkiv, I'm not going to write the whole thing because we basically want to know the skeleton, right? Kharkiv, northern eastern Ukraine, so like when there's a comma, oftentimes after a certain name, after a certain object, the sentence or the clause that comes after the comma tends to describe what this is, right? So Kharkiv is what kind of area? It's northern eastern Ukraine. So Russia's retreat has exposed So expose is the verb, right? So here's the sentence. Here's the subject. And has exposed, that's verb in present perfect form. Okay. Present perfect has exposed what? Has exposed weaknesses. Key weaknesses. So weaknesses is the object, but then key is the adjective that describes the object, right? So here is the object. Expose what? This is the object. And here's the adjective. Key weaknesses. What kind of weaknesses are they? In the supplies and staffing. So the key idea is at the front, right? Russia's retreat from Kharkiv has exposed weaknesses in the supplies and staffing. What are the weaknesses? Supplies and staffing, right? Of who? Of the nation's armed forces, of the military. And then, this is actually like starting with a quotation, right? And ending with a quotation right before Russian veterans, right? Russian veterans and military bloggers say. So I would put a comma right here, and then at the end of the sentence, put a period, right? So that's the key idea in bold. You have no idea how tired I am. To say hello. So I'm gonna just increase this, the size of this so that you can see better. Or maybe I can just put it once again on Word. Okay, so this started with a quotation. So somebody is speaking to somebody else, right? And so we're gonna see what that is. You have no idea. So here's the complete sentence. You have no idea. You don't understand, right? How tired I am. Like, what do you not understand? How tired I am, right? Why are you tired? To say hello to someone in the morning. So like, obviously, somebody visits or somebody calls or emails, right? And then you have to do the rest of the job in order to respond to that hello, respond to that request, and to have to identify his remains after the same day, later the same day. So like, it's a very fast pace because there are so many people who are dying in the battlefield. And so then someone says hello, it could be a family member, it could be an authority. Okay, somebody's missing. It probably comes first, this kind of request comes from within the military, right? Because before the word reaches the family doesn't know where their family members are yet. And then the military is missing some people, and okay, so then, all right, just check where this person is. Is he just missing in the war, or is he dead? And so his remains later the same day. one Russian officer serving as a Marine in Ukraine. So that whole thing is the subject. So once again, the subject and verb comes after the sentences that carry the most important weight. The most important part has been put forth. So why? Because the news reporter who's writing this is trying to convey to the readers, including you and me, the main point is the soldiers, the Russian soldiers are tired and they are low in morale, they are understaffed. And you have no idea how tired I am. To say hello to someone in the morning and have to identify his remains later the same day. Oh, so I guess, this is not a person requesting, but sorry, I misunderstood this. So this person actually met another soldier who is alive in the morning. The person who is alive in the morning, and then in the afternoon they're gone. They're killed, right? And so why is this person tired? Because death is just tragic, and you see, death is so imminent, and you're so intimate with death, and there are so many deaths, and this is just a very fast-paced work they has to do. Finding human remains is not an encouraging job, so he is very much tired. One Russian officer serving as a Marine in Ukraine reportedly confided over the phone. So the whole subject is what? One Russian officer serving, who is that officer? Serving as a Marine in Ukraine. And that's the whole subject, right? And then what did he do? He reportedly confided. He confided over the phone. But then this has been reported by somebody, and this person who is writing this report, this news article, has not directly heard from this source. So then you have to say reportedly confided over the phone. Someone reported to me that this person confided over the phone to a former colleague back home, former soldier who is likely to understand his circumstances well. Okay, this colleague, who is this colleague? Who published it on his Telegram channel. So this colleague used a closed communication channel called Telegram, and he had to just publish this because he wanted, still within that closed channel, wanted people to understand what was going on, know what is going on. Perhaps something has to change, or something has, or rendering, somebody has to render help, or people just need to know, and they will do something in order to change situations, right? Right, and then let's go for the next sentence. I know this can be very challenging to some of you, but like I said before, if you know the basic skeletons, then it's not as difficult. Okay, here's another quote, right? So these words are of more weight than what comes, like who said this, why they said this, and things like that. Is not as important as the content of the posting, content of the saying, right? Just yesterday. So it's starting with adverb, just yesterday, because that's important to this person. Just yesterday. It's not like we're not talking about months ago. We're not talking about last year. Just yesterday, 2 of my sniper groups were destroyed by a tank. So the Russian soldiers, the sniper groups were destroyed by a Ukrainian tank, right? So this sentence, you can say, adverb, it starts with adverb, and then what is the subject? 2 is the subject. 2 of what? 2 of my sniper groups. 2 people of my sniper groups. That's the subject. And then what is the verb? The verb is were destroyed. So it's in a passive form. So you could have said, Ukrainian tank destroyed 2 of my sniper groups. Yeah. So it's not two of, but rather 2 groups, right? 2 groups. So it's not 2 people, but 2 groups. Meaning whoever, like, we don't know how many people are in one group, but there are certainly 2 of them who were destroyed by a tank. So the Ukrainian tank actually destroyed 2 sniper groups. 3 men died instantly. The 4th one fought for his life for an hour and a half, but he still died, right? Another one in critical condition. So they either died or another one was taken to hospital in critical condition. So then when we look at the sentences, 3 men of the among the snipers, that's the subject. And what is the verb? The verb is died. And then how did they die? Instantly, right? And here's, you could have put a period right here because that's a complete sentence. But then instantly, and you could have put and in order to make it a compound sentence, right? The 4th one fought for his life for an hour and a half. Another one in critical. So when you say things in a series, you know, you can eliminate, you can kind of omit and, but, you know, however, and things like that. But rather just put them one after another by commas, because it gives you a sense of speed. It gives you a sense of how closely connected the ideas are, right? So normally you would have put it, 3 men died instantly, and the 4th one fought for his life for an hour and a half. But still another one is in critical condition and was taken to a hospital. But you know, to make it flow, and because these are closely connected ideas, they eliminated and or in the conjunctives, and they put them side by side, one after another by comma. 3 men died instantly. The 4th one fought for his life for an hour and a half, but still died, right? Another one in critical condition was taken to hospital. We have hardly any men left, and we're holding a front line dozens of kilometers long. Okay, we have hardly any men left. So what is the subject here? It's we. And then the verb is have, right? And then the object is men. But what kind of men? Hardly any men. And the describing word, the adjective is left. The man who is left, right? Men who are left. And we are holding a front line. Okay, so here's a complete sentence. So here's a complete sentence that ends right here. And then a new sentence starts right here. And we are holding a front line. So what is the subject? The subject is we, and the verb is are holding. So we talked about present continuous, right? So we have hardly any men left. Okay. And we're holding the front line, holding a front line. A front line. of kilometers long. Okay, so here's the subject. And then the verb is have, just present simple. Hardly any men, so any man, that's an object. And this is the adjective. And that's also adjective, right? And then it's connected by and a new sentence comes right after we, subject again. What's the verb? Are holding. And verb in what tense? It's present continuous. Right. We're holding what? A front line is the object. And then a front line that is like what? That is, what kind of front line is that? It's dozens of kilometers long. That's an adjective. Okay. Yeah, a front line that is dozens of kilometers long, right? While Russian officials and state media are trying to play down, okay, so let's look at this sentence one more time. Here. So, it starts with a clause, right? Starts with a clause. How do we know? Because of the word while, right? It's talking about the duration. So, while Russian officials and state media are trying to play down the Russian forces' retreat from Kharkiv. Okay, so that's a clause, right? So who's doing what here? Russian officials, right? Russian officials. And who else? State media. So they're treating state media, I mean, media is media, but then it's not a thing, but rather people who are operating state media, right? So Russian officials and people of state media are trying to play down. So media, up to here is the subject, right? And then what is the verb? Are trying. Present continuous, present progressive. Okay, trying what? To play down the Russian forces' retreat from Kharkiv. Play down what? The retreat, right? Individual war reporters. So while they're doing this, other people, so this is the subject, individual war reporters, veterans, and influential military bloggers. Like it's mouthful, but they're all subject. All of these people are doing what? Are acknowledging. So are acknowledging, that is the present continuous form of the verb, right? What are they acknowledging? Challenges. Basically the keyword is challenges. What kind of challenges? Numerous challenges. Numerous challenges where? Within closed messaging channels. So closed messaging channels have the messages about the challenges, right? Within the closed, so they are acknowledging where? Acknowledging the challenges in the closed channels. here's another sentence. It's relatively short compared to like what we have been studying. So it starts with the subjects again. What are the subjects? Blogs and Telegram channels. That's the subject, right? Oh. And what is the verb? Are littered. It's in a passive form. Are littered. Are trashed, right? With what? With stories of inadequate equipment. With stories, right? What are the stories about? About inadequate equipment. So equipment is the noun, and the adjective is what? Inadequate. The equipments are inadequate. And personnel. So personnel, also inadequate, right? Compounded by a rigid operational hierarchy. Okay. So he's making it complex, can be a sentence, but then the problem has become more complex. By what? So this is like a passive tone. By a rigid operational hierarchy. So the rigid operational hierarchy is making it more complex, right? Okay, so let's talk about this sentence slightly longer. So here's the subject. Sometimes when the subject is really long, then they can utilize a comma, but in this case, rather than because of its length, because they want to put describing words afterwards without, and they're trying to really make the sentences really succinct, and that's part of the reason they utilize the comma, dashes, and they're omitting certain verbs or bees. They're trying to get rid of certain words to make it flow, but also succinct. One Telegram channel, that is the subject, right? What kind of channel is that? That's sharing experiences of soldiers in the field in Ukraine shortly after the latest retreat. Yeah. So with the subject, and it's describing adjectives afterwards. That entire thing is the subject, right? One Telegram channel sharing experiences of soldiers in the field in Ukraine shortly after the latest retreat. And then, what is the verb? Describes. That telegram, channel describes what? What do they describe? This is the object. How even deploying the object is in a complete sentence, or like at least a clause. The clause is the object. Okay, so how even deploying a small surveillance drone needs to be approved. Describes how even deploying a small. So this is the subject first. Deploying a small surveillance drone. That is the subject, and then the verb is what? Needs to be approved. By whom? By a senior officer or a general, considerably. So general, and then the comma, which results in what? Considerable slowdown of understanding of the enemy's positions. And then it says, another channel on Telegram reportedly run by a Russian Special Forces veteran. So apparently, another channel on Telegram, that is the subject, right? Well, further description comes after the comma. What kind of Telegram? What kind of channel is run by a Russian Special Forces veteran? Okay. And once again, this fact is not what this writer has directly observed, and he has heard from a third party, a credible source, and therefore he has to say what she has to say. He has to say reportedly run by a Russian Special Forces veteran. And what's the verb? Has posted. So this is present perfect, right? Has posted. So it started in the past at some point, and it's still true as of now, right? Has posted a photo of a Russian, so has posted, and then the impact is still continuing, right? Has posted a photo of a Russian soldier sporting an arm patch. So has posted is the verb, and then what is the object? It's a photo. What kind of photo is that? A photo of a Russian soldier sporting an arm patch embroidered with the words. So like if you've ever had like a cast, right? Your friends actually surround you and then you start writing on that cast. It's like that. There is no opponent worse than your own commander who is blah, blah, using an expletive to describe him. So here's an interesting sentence. So it says there is no opponent worse than your own commander. Without using an explicit to describe it. Right, so here's a word that we want to look up, right? Which is expletive, right? Expletive. It's a word, an oath or swear word. A word or phrase serving to fill out a sentence or a line of verse. Okay, so so perhaps it was a swear word, right? Cussing word, expletive. So it was a swear or cuss word. So whenever you encounter a difficult word that you want to look it up, so the sentence finishes with quotation mark. Oh, the quotation mark is over there, and then this is further describing, or like further describing. So we can flip over a sentence structure by using there, using there is, there has been, and things like that. So what is the subject? Actually, the opponent, no opponent, that is the subject. No opponent is worse than your own commander. No opponent is worse than, right? So I'm gonna write an alternative, like usually how it is put, right? No opponent is worse than your own commander. Yeah, so so you would usually say this, but then sometimes it's helpful for your purpose to flip over the sentence. So you put is over here, and then because there has to be something in the sentence, you cannot start the sentence with the word is, you would place there. Okay? So there is no opponent worse than your own commander. So that's how it's flipped over. So then I'm gonna just give you one question. So my question is, okay, so no one wants to do this. No one wants to do that. Okay. Okay, so this sentence is kind of a regular sentence. So then how do you flip over, you know, and you know, you can, for a purpose to make the sentences kind of, yeah, you know, put in various structures into the, so that it won't be monotonous, it will not be the same kind of thing over and over again, but it gives a little bit of flavor. And there's another purpose, you know, of course, it changes the meaning, right? How do you flip over this sentence to put there, right? No one wants to do that. There is, right? So you put the subject right here, no one. And then you put there is, or there has been, you know, whatever your tense is in the original sentence. So in this case, I would say no one. You have to match the be according to your subject, which can be singular or plural. This is singular, so you would say there is, right? No one. No one wanting to do that, or who wants to do that, right? No one wants to do that. There's no one who wants to do that. So you can flip over like that. Okay. So, and then another thing is comparative, right? The original adjective would be bad, right? And then what is the comparative? It's worse. And then even worse than that is what? Worst. Right? Bad, worst, worst. So in order to use then, you go with the comparative, right? Worse than. It's not bad then or worse than, right? How about good? What is the comparative? It's better. And then this superlative is best, right? What else? Well, there are some regular adjectives, right? Say abundant. What is a comparative? You put more in front of that word. More abundant. What is a superlative? Is most abundant. Yeah, so more or most. And then let's try a couple more things. comparative? Higher. And then, what's a superlative? It's highest. Glory in the highest, right? What about rough? How about tough? Okay, what is the comparative? Tougher. What is the superlative? Toughest. So in this case, they use the comparative because they wanted to compare one thing to another, right? There is no opponent worse than your own commander. So this is pretty bad, right? Because you are battling against your opponent in a battlefield. Obviously, you as people in the same troops and same battalion or whatever, you should be on the same side, and you can't say. Not many people will say, like, this person in our battalion or this commander like of our troops is worse of an opponent. That's a pretty bad comment, right? So who is This is this is like a beep language, right? The cuss word that they couldn't put it up using an expletive. Expletive is what? Expletive language, a swear word. To describe him, to describe the commander. Him is referring to the commander, right? And then there should be a period right after, right? All right, I think we are dissecting more efficiently than before. So I'm going to skip over, just read through and skip over to the next thing. There is no way. So here's another sentence that has flipped over the structure. There is no way of knowing where and when the image was shot. So when you flip the sentence, one of the reasons is because you want to emphasize certain aspects. One more time, you do not know where and when the image was shot. You want to say that, but then you want to emphasize of not knowing. Then you would say there's no way. No way stands out, right? By pulling that to the front. There's no way of knowing where and when the image was shot. But what is significant is that it has been. So it started in the past at some point, and the impact is still present. It has been widely shared by both veterans and forces in the field, suggesting it reflects popular opinion among the country's rank and file. Despite rumors of low morale, Russian war reporters and paramilitary soldiers serving in Ukraine are not suggesting that widespread desertion in the field contributed to the latest rout in eastern Ukraine. Okay, despite rumors. Despite rumors. So I guess they spell it differently because obviously this is BBC, but so I'm going to use American way of spelling of low morale. Russian war reporters paramilitary soldiers. Serving in Ukraine. I'm not suggesting that widespread desertion in the field contributed to the latest route in eastern Ukraine. Alright, so here's a comma, and this is a clause, right? Okay, this is a clause. Okay, and so what's the subject? Here's the subject. Russian war reporters and paramilitary soldiers. Right? This whole thing is the subject. Russian war reporters and paramilitary soldiers. And further description, these people who are serving, so like it has omitted certain words, right? In order to make it succinct. And because like you can read it and it makes sense without those words. So who are have been omitted. Soldiers who are serving in Ukraine. That whole thing is the subject. And then what is the verb? Are not suggesting. So suggest is the verb, and then it's in the present continuous form. Present progressive. I'm gonna, I don't want to confuse you with past perfect. So I'm gonna say present continuous. Well, yeah, present continuous, and so, suggesting what? That, the whole clause that starts after that is the object, right? Suggesting what? That widespread description in the field. And so after that, after the word that, there's another whole, full sentence, right? Widespread desertion. In the field. So, what is the subject? Desertion. What kind of desertion? Widespread. And then where did it take place? The adverb is in the field. Desertion did what? That's the subject. And what is the verb? Here's the verb. Contributed, which is in the past simple tense. Contributed. To what? To the latest route. This is talking about the retreat, right? Withdrawal, military withdrawal. defeat, right? Neutral. In Eastern, it's not necessarily defeat because like we have no way of interpreting that right now. The latest route in Eastern Ukraine, they withdrew their troops because they allegedly say that it was by the command of the authorities that they withdrew the army or withdrew the military. Okay, so you can actually flip over. This because they put this because of the importance, but then we can flip over the structure and then still make sense, right? So you can say this: Russian war reporters and paramilitary soldiers serving in Ukraine are not suggesting that widespread desertion of the field contributed to the latest rout in eastern Ukraine, despite remarks of low morale, right? So you could have said that. But to the writer, this was important because there's rumors of low morale, that the military is tired, they are low staffed and inadequately equipped, because that's the key point of this entire article, right? So he put this forward. Now, past perfect, we might have briefly touched on this before. So here is past. We're now getting used to this diagram, right? And then future. But before we say that, briefly, what is a verb, right? Describes an action. Action of the subject, right? Examples: Shelley has been waiting for an hour already. Yeah, so wait is the verb, right? I'm writing a novel. Write is the verb, right? And past perfect, what is this tense? The past perfect tense most often expresses actions in the past that finished before another action started. So there were two different actions at least, right? So action A, action B. So we're talking about at this point. Point B is the point of observation. Right? This is the point of observation. And when I looked at this event, activity from past point B, activity A had already been done, is what it's saying. So example might be, I had worked. So at point B, I was resting. But you know what? I had already worked. Before I was working, right? I finished the product, right? So examples, the train had just left when I arrived at the station. So you arriving at the station is the point of observation. There was another activity, arrived, but the train had already left, right? She had met him before the party. So the party took place. You can say she had met him before party took place. So your point of observation is already in the past. You're not observing from now. Your observation was from the past, and from that point of observation, that activity had already taken place. Kate had wanted to see the movie, but she did not have money for the ticket. So she might have money now, but back at that point, she did not have money. But then before she checked if she had money, she had wanted to see the movie. So it's from the past point of observation, the activity had already taken place, or the condition, right? She had established her company before 2008. So 2008 is already in the past. What I observed in the year 2008, she had established her company. Okay, and she had never seen a bear before she moved to Alaska. So she moved to Alaska, and that was the past event. She might be living in Alaska still, but she might have moved out, we don't know. But moving to Alaska was a past event. And then from that point of observation, she had never seen a bear earlier than that. She finally saw a bear after arriving in Alaska. Maybe that's what it means, right? What is the negative form of past perfect tense? I had written to my mother in years. I had not written to my mother in years. I had not called the police before I investigated the noise in the garden. They hadn't been here yesterday. She hadn't done a good job. I hadn't ever worked there before. And then you can also put it in a question form. So whenever you're dealing with perfect tense, you don't use do or does or is or are, but rather you put that perfect word like has or have, had at the beginning of the sentence, right? You've probably noticed that because we've gone over many sentences so far. Had the weather been nice in previous years? Had the team planned its next move before the weather changed? So in previous years, like, okay, so last year, the weather was pretty bad. Had the weather been nice in previous years, right? Had the team planned its next move before the weather changed? So the weather already changed. But when we observe from the point where the weather changed, looking back, the team, did they plan its next, had they planned their next move? Had it taken so long to get a reservation in the past? So, yeah, it took a long time to make a reservation last time. It took a long time, so it already passed. It's already in the past. But from that point of view, we were able to observe how it had been done even in earlier times, right? Had you ever visited the United States before your trip in 2006? This could be an immigration interview, right? Immigration office interview. So you've traveled to United States in 2006. That's already passed, right? But had you ever visited the U.S. before that? Had you ever seen the movie Titanic before you lived in the United States? Yeah. So before you moved to the United States, had you ever seen the movie Titanic? And then you can put things in WH question form. So we haven't done too much of this so far, but we can start adding. So WH questions are what? I just said it, right? What, who, where, when, and then you throw in there how as well. So what are some of the examples? Why had the bus stopped in the previous city? So the bus stopped, regularly, but then why had the bus stopped in the previous city? Why had it visited New York? So like, Oh, really? He was there? Oh, you were working there and you met him? Why had he visited New York then? You know, like, so from that point when you were, by observing from the point when you were working, by observing from that point, you know, why had he visited New York, right? How had he paid for college? So he paid for graduate school. How had he paid for college before? What had you eaten before you got sick? So, oh, you became sick last week, or you became sick 3 days ago. What had you eaten, right, before that? So you got sick in the past. From that point of view, from that point you observed, what had you eaten, right? Where had the team planned its next move before the weather changed? Who had they originally found to cater the event? You can also use contractions like, you know, I had to, I'd, you had to, you'd, he had to, he'd, she had to, should, we had to, we'd, they had to, they'd. To form the past participle, add ed to the infinitive form. And of course, you know, there are irregular verbs. Once again, you have to just memorize them. Past perfect tense uses. Past perfect tense is used to describe two actions happened in the past. There are some grammatical errors like in the instructions. Sorry about that. The action that happened, the first uses the past perfect. The next action will use a past simple. Yeah, we saw the pattern. But we'll continue to talk about past perfect tense. We're almost done about this tense, but there are a few more things to talk about, and we're going to continue. So let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for today. You have taught us an important tense, Lord God.